Welcome back to Golf Training Hacks. What do you do if you come back from a round and let's say your back is a little stiff or a little painful? Now, I'm not talking about vicious sciatic pain or true injuries like bulging discs or slip discs or pinched nerves, things like that. I'm talking about just being a little stiff, a little painful after a round, or maybe even after doing some work around the house. So in this video, I'll give you 3 easy techniques to help you reduce some of that lower back stiffness and pain that you might get from playing around the golf or working around the house. So let's get started. So I just got through a workout and my lower back is a little stiff. Now I thought it would be helpful for you guys to see me go through a release session where I'm going to try to loosen up my lower back. Now there's a lot of misinformation about rolling, foam rolling, and releasing stiff and tight tissue. So in a lot of the videos that we've done, we go through it rather quickly. We don't even actually show you an entire session. So what I'm going to do in this video is break up sessions into maybe 6 to 8 to 10 minute segments. So you can follow along or you can just watch it and then do it on your own. But what I'm going to do is work on the high glute area. Then I'm going to work on the lats going right up into underneath my arm, because that's all connected to the hip. And then I'm going to work directly on the lower back. Now, normally I wouldn't work directly on the lower back if my lower back hurts, but in this case, for me, this really feels good to get a roller on these areas back here. It's really important to breathe. Now, I'm going to talk through a lot of this, but I'm also just going to stop and just breathe through it, because you need to send a relaxing signal to your neurological system. Your system is set up, your neurological system is set up to protect you. Your brain is always trying to look for threats to joints and soft tissue. When it perceives a threat, it's going to shut things down and make things tight. So by breathing, you're only making the rolling or using tennis balls or lacrosse balls, whatever implement you're using, more effective by letting your brain understand that these positions are not a threat and it can relax the stiffness. And also, stiff and fibrotic tissue will release the pressure if you stay on it long enough. So just rolling up and down your thighs for 30, 40, 50 seconds or a minute really isn't that effective. So in this video, I'm going to show you a more effective way to begin to release some of that stiff and fibrotic and tight tissues that may be causing some back stiffness. Now don't forget, if something is stiff, you want to work above it and below it. You don't necessarily want to go right to the spot that's stiff and tight. And in this case, my lower back is stiff, so I'm going to work on my hips, my lats, and then I'm going to go to the right onto the lower back. Okay, so let's get started. First, I'm going to use a lacrosse ball. I'd recommend that you use a tennis ball. What I'm going to do is use this lacrosse ball and work across the top of my pelvis where the glute max is kind of at the top of the pelvis and kind of blends into the muscles up in your lower back. So I'm going to place the ball towards the midline, towards my spine, and I'm going to begin to roll on it. Now, as I said, what you really want to do is breathe. So I'll be taking deep breaths in, finding a spot and releasing. And what I want to do is release my breath, somewhere about twice as long as you inhale. That's going to really send a nice signal to the neurological system that these positions are a threat. So right now, I'm just moving around the hip and trying to find some spots that are a little tight or a little sore. You might find trigger points. Now I'm on kind of towards the outside of my hip, and I'm still hunting around for areas that are stiff. You can play around with your leg position. You can bring it up. You can make it straight. I'll show you some other positions in a few minutes. But I'm still trying to find some spots I might want to work on. Now, I'm sinking into this ball, and I'm gathering up that muscle, and I'm trying to push it back towards the spine as I roll this ball back towards the spine. And I'm going slowly. I'm not rushing. So I'm just trying to push that muscle back towards the spine. Now I'm going to go back to the side again, gather up that muscle tissue into like a bunch, and I'm going to push that muscle back towards the spine. Now, the spot I'm on right now is particularly sensitive and tight. So I'm just going to rock back and forth on this a little bit, see if I can get some release in here, and keep breathing. Stiff and fibrotic tissue, if you stick on it long enough, stay on it long enough, will release. So I'm getting some release there. Now I'm going to play around with my leg position. I'm going to bring it up, and this is tightening up, the muscles in that upper glute max a little bit more as you go into more flexion in your hip. And now I'm just going to be rolling around and trying to find some spots that maybe hurt a little bit more, or a little feel stiff. I'm going really slow. I'm not moving the ball very much, maybe, a quarter of an inch or an inch at a time, just trying to find something. And now I'm towards my spine again. Now I'm going to be pushing, gathering up that muscle and pushing it out towards you and rolling back on it. So there's that spot again that I found before, and now I'm just going to work that spot by doing some circles with my leg. Now you can always put more pressure or less pressure. So if I had to take off some pressure, I could use my arm, this leg, and release it a little bit. If I want more pressure, obviously I can raise this leg up, and now I have some more pressure. If you even need some more pressure, what I do is I'll take this leg and I'll put it into this hip, and then I'll just use this leg to put more pressure into that spot. Now, depending on how sensitive it is, this may be way too much pressure. But for me right now, I feel like I can take it. And I am making some change. So as I'm rolling this ball around, I'm finding that the spots that were tight, the spots that were painful, are less so. And in fact, this feels pretty good. So I've made a change. Now I'm looking at the clock. I'd say this has been about 4 minutes or so. So I'm going to spend another minute on this side. Now I'm right into that spot that hurt originally. Now I can put a lot of weight on this. As you can see, I have a lot of force going into that spot. And when I started this little session here, it was pretty painful. Okay, so I made a change. Now I'm going to switch to the other side. So I'm starting here, and I'm moving all along the top of the pelvis. And we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to check the clock. All right. You might find that one side is more stiff or more painful or have more trigger points, more fibrotic, whatever you want to call it, than the other side. I find that my right hip tends to hurt much more than my left side, but you do both. And what's interesting is, I have back problems, and pretty severe back problems maybe 15, 20 years ago, where my thigh had surface numbness and I had very bad sciatic pain. But right now, how it displays itself, or the symptoms, whatever you want to call it, when my back feels stiff and it hurts, this right hip hurts. Oddly enough, though, the muscles on the left side of my back, just above the pelvis, are much stiffer than those on the right side. Now I'm going to show you what I mean by that towards the end of this. So we are built neurologically in a crosslink. We have straps of fascia and muscles that cross the body. That's how we're built. So it's not unusual necessarily that my right hip hurts and my left, which is the area quadratus lumborum, the QL, and the muscles around there are much stiffer than the right side. You would think, well, shouldn't the right side be stiff all the way up? Maybe, but for me, no. And actually, if I get a tension headache, I get it from the right side just below my neck where that muscle is. It goes up into my neck, so it kind of crosses like that. So now I don't feel much on this side, so I'm going to go right into this position where I'm going to put my knee into some flexion here. I'm going to get this leg into this hip, and I'm going to put some stress on it. I'm going to just move that ball up a little bit more. You don't want to go too deep into the glute. You're really trying to stay high up. Okay, so now I'm going to just see if I can find something that is a little bit more painful. And I got one there, so I'm going to just try to stay on this and breathe. Well, that feels pretty good. I don't think I need to spend too much time much more on that. Okay, so doesn't mean you have to spend 5 or 6 minutes exactly on each side. You do what you feel is best. Now, I'm going to take this roller, has some stubble on it, some knobs on it, and I'm just going to get up on this. And actually, if you need to use something to prop yourself up, I'm going to get up on my hip. And I can use this. And now I'm just going to gather that muscle up, and I'm going to go across it. I'm going to push my hip forward, and I'm going to go back. I'm just going to finish that high glute release with this kind of motion. And this feels pretty good because using that ball really did some nice work on releasing this. And I don't think I need to do too much more here because I don't feel a lot of stiffness or pain. So I pretty much cleared that up. And believe me, it was pretty tender when I started this. Okay, so that's that side. So let's go to this side now. Now, maybe other days I might need to spend more time on that. But in this case, today, it felt pretty good. Okay, so we'll get up on this. Find that spot. Just above the pelvis, right, actually tracing the pelvis, and I'm going to push, I'm pushing it back and rolling forward. I'm pushing to you and rolling back. So I'm gathering up that tissue, and I'm just kind of rocking back and forth on it. And again, this side feels pretty good. A couple more just to see, maybe I can clear it, get a little higher here. And that feels pretty good. So once again, I'm talking, but you should be breathing. Okay, so that was, I guess, looks like around 10 minutes or so on your high glute. Now, the next segment will be with a roller. You can use any roller you want. We're going to work on the lats because the lats are hooked right into your, I'm just going to move this back a little bit. Your lats are hooked into your pelvis and actually into your upper arm here. So it's really important to loosen your lat muscles up when you are trying to get some relief into your lower back. So now, actually I'm going to turn this to you a little bit. Now I'm going to roll across this muscle. Rolling up and down is okay if you want to just kind of find some place that's stiff or painful. But just doing this is not really that effective. And even though you see a lot of people doing that for a minute and then they leave it, you know, it takes more than that. We're going to do this. We're going to roll across the muscle like this. So you can just, when you're working your lat, you can just go across it and breathe. Put your arm in different positions. I'm just going to keep mine out here. If you find a spot that's tender, you can just stay on it. Take a deep breath in and release. But here's a real effective way to do it. You remember what I did with that roller? I went back and forth. So I'm going to pull my body back. That scrunches up this lat muscle in the front. Then I'm going to roll across it. Now I'm going to push to you. That scrunches that lat muscle up in the back, and now I'm going to roll back like this. So this is the motion. I'm pulling back. All that muscle tissue gets scrunched up here, and I'm going to roll on that. And then I'm going to push to you and roll across it. Now I'm just going to go up and down my lat, moving it as I see that I need it, because I don't feel a lot of discomfort here. So I'm just going to keep rolling up and down, moving up and down this until I find a spot that may be a little more tender, and that's one. And I feel that muscle tissue kind of clunking across this roller. Going forward, coming back, I'm going to just breathe. Change the spot. And you might feel like that feels like that muscle is kind of clunking over the roller. And now I can feel a spot that's really tight right there. So I'm just going to stay on this and breathe. Another way to work your release sessions are with isometric holds. So this is a spot that's pretty tender. So I'm going to take a deep breath in. I'm going to contract my lat, and then I'm going to release. So I'm going to try to inhale for 4, contract for 4 while I'm holding my breath, and release the breath for 8 as I release the contraction. So here we go. And now I'm going to go back and forth on this again. That really, just that alone released it. That's a good way to signal your neurological system that this is okay. You know, pressure and isometric holds, eventually the muscle is going to release to that from a neurological point of view and just from a physical point of view. Okay, so I got that side. I'm going to go up a little higher, but I don't think I feel anything there. So I'm just going to go right to the other side. Okay. Again, we're going to start. I'm starting, by the way, right at the base of my ribs. I'm going to roll back and forth. Now, this side is a lot tighter. And as I mentioned, my left side here is very tight versus this side. So I feel that in my lat too. So, you know, I tend to spend a little more time on this side because I'm getting some significant discomfort immediately on this side. You don't want to go fast, you want to go slow. So I'm getting that to release already. And don't forget, I do this a lot, so I'm not surprised that I can get a release pretty quick, even when it kind of hurts a little bit. I mean, this particular release session I do probably 3 or 4 times a week because I do have back problems and lower back problems, and this, for me, seems to relieve it. Now, I'm just showing you this as a demonstration of what a release session should look like. It's not 30 seconds of rolling up and down your quads and then thinking like you're good. All right, or even a minute. You know, you have to find spots and you have to work on these things, especially if you exercise a lot, or if you do have a lot of stiffness or a lot of pain. You know, this is a great thing to do after a round of golf, after a range session. See, I have a lot of discomfort here, so I'm just going to actually spend some time rolling on this one spot. I'm just going to go, a few inches right and left and just breathe into it. I'm going to put a contract and relax into this. Go back over this again. And also, this shoulder is a big problem for me. Okay, I have injuries there and quite a significant lack of range of motion and pain. So getting into this area, even into the back, is really helpful for me. And I feel that clunkiness in there, but that's okay. I'm just going to keep rolling over it. Now I'm going to get deeper into that, or higher up into that lat. And it's really starting to feel pretty good now and releasing. But because this shoulder is so bad, I want to spend some time up here. Now you could put your arm overhead. Now you can see I really have problems with that. Now it's not a bad thing to do for me to actually try to release in this position, because this is the position that's really restricted. So, and that actually creates more discomfort and stiffness. So try to get it a little higher and do the same thing. All right, so that's pretty good. All right, so that's number 2. And I feel a lot better with that. Now, the third way to do this is, what I do is now I'm going to go directly on the areas that are stiff, because I feel pretty good now. So I'm going to take the roller and I'm going to put it directly on that those muscle structures, right. If that's the pelvis and there's my ribs, I'm working right in here, okay? Right in this meaty area right here. And that can be very stiff on people. But I'm not doing that until I feel like I've really released beneath it and above it. And you have to be careful here, because if that's where your pain is, you want to be gentle. You really don't want to be in a lot of discomfort. You want to be able to breathe. So now I'm just kind of gently rolling over this, rocking across this rather, and breathing, trying to get some release in here. And just for a demonstration, I'm going to show you how I can really get pretty levered over this roller on this side. So that side feels pretty good. Now watch this. I have a lot of discomfort on this side. Get facing you better. Okay. Okay, now that hurts immediately. And there's quite a bit of discomfort here. So I have to be really careful that I don't create too much discomfort and pain. I actually even like to hold this knee up for a while. But I can't get much further than this right now. And you can see the difference. That's about where I feel comfortable trying to begin to get a release. I can't get close to where I was on the other side, and that actually hurts quite a bit. So I'm going to stop talking to see if I can get some release in here by breathing. I'm going really slow. When I go forward, I don't have that much pain. When I'm towards my back, it's pretty significant. Now, I did release the pain. So the pain level is much lower. But the stiffness, the tightness, whatever it is, it's guarding, it's pulling my spine and hips in a certain direction. That's because I have a bit of scoliosis. So that means that one side is, a little curved versus the other, right? And so this left side is trying to hold that curve in place all the time, whereas the right side doesn't. Similarly with the right hip, it's probably trying to hold something in place, and it's always tight. And then when I rotate or do some work, swing a golf club, you're working against the tension or the tightness that's created as a protective mechanism because my spine has, a fundamental misalignment in it. We all have asymmetries. We all have issues. Well, most of us do. Okay, so I'm just going to stay on here for another 30 seconds or so and just breathe. All right, now I got to come out of that pretty slowly. Okay, so that's about, 25, 28 minutes or so. I think, about 28 minutes. I talked a little bit in the beginning too. But let's say that was like at least 25 minutes of work with foam rollers and lacrosse balls and things like that. You don't have to spend a half hour every time you go to this. You could spend 5 minutes and work on an area that is a problem. Or if you have time like this, at night, it would be really great to get something like this into your daily routine, or at least a few times a week. Now, I did this for my lower back, but any body part could be done like this with some time to let those tissues release, get some nice diaphragmatic breathing in, and reduce some of that pain and stiffness. Okay, I hope that was helpful. So thanks for watching.